Before we jump into today's episode, I just want to take a moment to say thank you for all the kind messages I received while I was recovering from COVID. Your emails and LinkedIn notes truly meant a lot. I'm feeling much better now, and I'm so grateful for this amazing community that keeps showing up, listening, and sharing every week. Today on OFFBounds, we are diving into the future, not only from a brand or business perspective, but through the consumer's eyes. Because innovation is a lot more than technology. It's about how it changes us, how we discover, decide, and connect. My guest is someone who's always 2 steps ahead of the curve. Maher, futurist and founder of M7 Innovations, a New York-based R&D firm that helps brands experiment with AI, voice, AR, and VR to create the next generation of customer experiences. In this conversation, we will unpack the future of discovery and how AI is redefining what it means to be found. We will also explore how spatial computing could transform engagement and how social media is quietly evolving into a full end-to-end commerce ecosystem. Here's Paula Macadi, and this is episode 93 of my show. Welcome to OFFBounds. Matt, welcome to our studio here. Welcome to OFFBounds.
Paul. I'm very excited to be here today. It's going to be a great conversation.
No, I am very excited to be here today. First, we have some interesting stuff here.
We got some gadgets.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that here. We never had something so techy. And also, I remember the first time we met was about 4 years ago.
4 years, yeah.
It feels like 60 years in technological
innovation.
Dog
years, that's at least 6 decades. 6 decades ago we met, yeah.
Yeah, so... yeah, it's nice to catch up after all the 60 years.
Yes.
But before we dive into the topics, how did you get into innovation? It seems like such a passion of yours. Like, how did you end up here?
Yeah, it's a great question. I had, everyone says in a previous life, but I think all our lives are connected. I worked in the media marketing world before I started M7 Innovations, always in innovation. And I was a misfit. I never really fit in Interpublic Group or Stagwell or these large holding companies I worked with. Even though I had success there, I was a misfit because I believed like innovation wasn't this like small chunk of a budget you'd cut off of a media plan to like try and test something new. I started to feel in 2016, 2017, probably during your rave era, that there were certain technologies that
was my past life.
That was your past life. That was your past life. I just felt like some of these technologies like artificial intelligence, like the evolving internet, like spatial computing and AR, they're just transformational. They weren't just, again, something you'd bolt onto a media plan. So I made the conscious decision to spin off in 2018 and start M7 Innovations as this kind of independent R&D firm to focus very narrowly just on these new innovative technologies. And I think throughout my whole life, why I loved innovation is even outside of all the gadgets and technology, I think the core of what innovation is just a simple solution to a complex problem. Sometimes it's just a simple solution to a simple problem. But I find that fascinating to live in that world where you're really identifying like a pain point or something that just doesn't work or make sense, then you're just applying either a layer of technology or just really smart strategic thinking to kind of solve that. So that's the crux of why I started M7 and why I'm here today and why I love innovation.
Yeah, but I don't know. Sometimes I feel some innovations are not solving any problem. They're just there to be there.
98% or maybe 99%, especially in the world of AI, is absolutely a bunch of solutions that are desperately looking for problems. So I think we're very much in that wave. I wouldn't even call it a wave. I'd call it a tsunami right now. And that's what we try to do at M7 with our clients is just navigate that and start to understand like what is absolute noise and just stay away from that versus what is an actual signal, what is something that people might start adopting, and what can you actually prepare for that's actionable, not just this like aspirational, cool, shiny object.
Great, and that's why we are here today.
Yes.
So let's talk about this tsunami.
Yeah.
AI is so hard to ignore. Like we can't stop talking about it. And I see why. Like it's really changing everything. We can't ignore because it's in my all day life. Like every day I'm dealing with it. Everyone is. I see my behavior changing. So I imagine like what is changing for the masses. How you're seeing consumer behavior in AI changing?
I mean, it's hard to underestimate this change, but I think I try to delineate it from like the internet. There's so many assimilations and metaphors of we are in now like the next internet era. And I just don't think that's right, because the internet was truly like a 0 to 1. We lived before the internet. And then once we had it, it just exploded with all these things we couldn't do before. We could buy things online, we could connect with friends. And everyone's acting, or a lot of the conversation is that AI is this again. We're now entering this new era. And it's not 0 to 1. In my opinion, it is, 1 to 10 or 1 to 100. So AI to me is just an accelerant on top of the internet. And that's why it's really hard to ignore. It's almost insidious in how it grows. So when you think of like the major tech giants, like the Metas and the TikToks and the Salesforces and the Adobes, like they are just instilling AI within their existing software stacks. So that's where I think people don't even realize how much they're using. To your point, like anything you do during your day, if you talk to Alexa, if you go on Spotify, if you scroll through TikTok, like AI is the infrastructure, that machine learning, that's what's happening. Now that it's generative, it's out in front. So now we're seeing it a lot more. And then that promise, that North Star for brands is it's going to be the ultimate in personalization. We're going to collapse the marketing funnel. We're not totally there yet, but now's the time to kind of plan as a brand for what that inevitable future looks like.
How are consumers changing though? Because I see my changes, but I want to see from your perspective on how are they interacting?
Yeah, I mean, you got to break it apart in different ways. There's, image and video creation and tools like Sora 2, where, I think they're, again, shiny objects. They don't have the mass adoption just yet. Then you look over to like a ChatGPT, which now has 800 million monthly active users. They're even saying now it's 800 million weekly active users. And you're feeling a seismic shift there. So I do think one mass adoption thing that is happening is Google is going nowhere, search is going nowhere, but that 93% market share, kind of that front door of the internet, like your door to discover anything in the internet was Google, we're now seeing extra doors. And I think GPT is in front. There's Perplexity, there's Claude, there's these other LLMs, but that's a major behavior we're seeing where humans are starting to shift to not just use Google or engines to navigate the web, but more to understand things on the web. And I think the major implication we'll start to see, especially in retail, is the shopping component. OpenAI is starting to build that into their backend infrastructure, where we have entity names, all these things where they're trying to line up the right brand, the right product in front of the consumer. But in terms of using AI, it's less on generating content with Sora 2 and all these things, and it's more on how they're actually navigating and understanding the internet as we know it.
Yeah, it's funny because I just downloaded recently Atlas,
Nice,
which is
all
the
right.
navigator.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be you a little bit, test things out. I don't know how I feel about it. I feel it's still flawed, but I get it.
Yeah.
Like how I can ask about something that I'm looking at the moment. Not shopping with it yet, maybe just looking for recommendations, but it's fascinating on what might change in my life in the near future, especially when it comes to agents or discovery.
Atlas, I mean, I have strong opinions about Atlas and agentic browsing. I like,
share with us. It's
yes,
fine.
I want to be
This is
careful.
a safe place.
I mean, it is safe. I was going to say, you can't say too many terrible things about OpenAI. You never know what Sam Altman's listening to. But yeah, I mean, Atlas, again, directionally correct, meaning it makes perfect sense. Now, we're partners with Perplexity. Again, Perplexity doesn't have the scale that OpenAI has. Perplexity is around 30 million monthly active users. They came out with Comet 4 months ago, which was also built on Chromium, which is built off of Chrome. So Chromium is responsible for Atlas, and it's also responsible for Comet. So to me, Atlas as a product today is not very good. Like I think Comet as a product is just way better, but 30 million monthly active users versus 800 million monthly active users, you have a larger migration opportunity of GPT users to use Atlas. It is definitely directionally correct, meaning I can see a world where agentically the menial tasks that we do on the internet can be delegated to an agent that does it on our behalf. Book me the restaurant, get me the flight, do some of those like low stakes things, even some like low level shopping, but it really can't do it today. I mean, if you even watched OpenAI's live stream where like the tech bros were sitting around the table, they're doing the demos. I mean, if you watch the Atlas demo when they looked at the recipe and said, I'm going to let the agent go buy all the ingredients, if you actually watched what happened, it needed 6 onions to make these like spooky little peppers. If you watched what Atlas did, it could not delineate between a pack of onions and a single onion. And I'm watching in the demo and I'm like, this thing just ordered 80 onions. It ordered 6 bunches of 12 onions thinking it was 6 onions. That gets purchased, that goes, and that's all I can think of. I'm like, who is gonna be responsible for that refund? So when that person gets like just a multitude of onions delivered to their house and they're like, I needed 6, are they gonna go to ChatGPT and blame them? Are they gonna go to Wegmans and say it was their fault? And this is where I think we're not there's not enough conversation about, in this agentic layer, this kind of handoff, like what happens when mistakes start to happen and who's going to be responsible for that. So the one thing I will say for brands, I absolutely see a world where agentic browsing will be a new reality. It's just that world's a little farther away, because I'll end with this point. I always come back to like the human, and I would argue, and I'd ask you this too, like, is Chrome, who 3 billion people use every single day, is that experience so terrible that you're desperate for a new browsing experience? Like, I would say most people would probably say, no, like Chrome's fine, Safari's fine. So again, Atlas feels like another solution that's looking for a problem, but right now browsing the internet isn't a problem. So we have a little bit of a timeline before everyone starts using agentic browsing. But when that time comes, especially in retail, like watch out, because things will really start to change.
That's very interesting. I never considered about whose fault is when there's a mistake.
I've bought many things agentically, and there have been times where inventory was wrong. So I want to say I bought a pair of glasses. The inventory within comments said that it was there, but then when they went to do fulfillment, the headless browser, there was actually no inventory on the .com because it wasn't updated. This will go into our conversation later about data, and how important that is. And it was actually Perplexity that stepped in to say this was essentially the retailer's fault, but we'll automatically give you a full refund and we'll let you know next time it's there. So, I mean, this is anecdotal. I'm a tech nerd, early adopter, but those things will happen more and more, which, you see with Amazon, you see with Walmart, but it really is going to be interesting of like, who is essentially to blame? Would it be the browser that was not right with the inventory? Is it the retailer who didn't update their latest schema or Google Shopping list? I mean, so that's going to be a huge issue where humans will get very angry when they're not getting the right products or they're getting hundreds of onions delivered to their house.
Very interesting point. And I'll just get a little bit to the shorter term, I guess.
Yeah.
There's a lot of conversations that I have. Literally, I talk to leaders every day. That's what I do.
Great space.
And there's a big concern into how to allow products to be discovered.
Yeah.
It's what we call the AEO or GEO, people searching at ChatGPT or Perplexity, what are the best products for your old?
Yeah. Yep.
Things like that. How do you see that evolving?
I mean, we need a 5-hour podcast to give the actionable items of how to show up essentially in an AI first search world. The very, very top line level is it is different. So anyone who thinks I can just take my like technical SEO tactics and just port those over to an AI first search world, that's just not going to work. Early data just on how people are searching is so different. Some data from Perplexity shows, 97% of searches within Perplexity are non-navigational. I mean, people aren't trying to get to a website. 47% use a follow-up intent, meaning they're asking a question, then a follow-up, then a follow-up. So that just fundamentally changes. I think for brands, what they can immediately do is start to look at, are you providing answers? The reason they call it AEO or GEO, answer engine optimization or generative engine optimization, is, are you supplying the answer? These LLMs are just trying to find that single source of truth for the user.
That's why we use Reddit so much.
Reddit. That's why Reddit's number one. Wikipedia's number one. I know it's wild. Again, follow the money always. There's a reason Reddit can command a $60 million deal with Google. They're now over $200 million in licensing deals for their data, which is more money than New York Times or Wall Street Journal can get, which is fascinating until you realize what Reddit's sitting on, which is 22 billion data points of human-made content. And that is, I think, what brands don't realize. So many of the Fortune 1000s, when they think of Reddit, they think of bad sentiment. Like, if I could just work with Reddit to just eliminate all the negative stuff about my brand, then everything would be great. But what they don't realize is that's a feature, not a bug, that these LLMs want to see conflict. They want to see someone like a product and dislike a product, because then they can see that argument, then weigh the validity and veracity of each argument of who's more right, and then decide there's an actual answer, which is why for brands, paid media is absolutely invisible. Like, we are beyond the world where I want a 90% share of voice in Google, so I can spend $100 million to be at the top of the list. That just doesn't exist anymore. So I think for brands, you have to start thinking of how your authority exists. Like, where are your sources? What are your third parties? Like, where do you actually have authority? And then from that, you can start to interconnect the pieces and show up. The last piece I'll say, we work closely with Profound, with Evertune. These are these great AI brand monitoring firms that are actually starting to show brands exactly how they show up, and then gives them actionable steps of what to change on their owned and operated, on social platforms, on Reddit, to start to get higher into that kind of zero-click world where there's one answer, not 20. things.
It's funny because I just moved to the US, back to the US 5 months ago, and Reddit has been a big part of my consumer journey since I moved here. It wasn't that much when I was in Europe. The reason I like Reddit is because I think it's a genuine point of view from someone that hasn't been paid for. I wonder if like brands interacting too much with Reddit would ruin that point of discovery for me.
Yeah, I mean, Reddit, we call it an inverse marketing platform, meaning the more money you spend, the more you try to force messagings on Reddit, the more of like an adverse reaction people on that platform will actually have. Now, that company has matured wonderfully in the past few years. They have a much more mature ad system. But the reality is like Reddit for over 20 years has relied on the same digital mechanic, and that is the upvote, downvote system. And that's really powerful because that is the ultimate validator, meaning it is only humans. Sometimes there's bots, but they kind of try to clear those out. But it's humans deciding what gets to the top and what gets to the bottom. And in 2025, when we are just inundated and our algorithms basically control our lives on Meta, on TikTok, on Amazon, everywhere we go, it's an algorithm kind of feeding us what it believes we want. There's something really refreshing about a Reddit that everything is human curated. That's why Reddit, Substack, Patreon, Blue Sky, you're starting to see these like anti-algorithm platforms pop up that are just really interesting because again, it's human curated. And I think for retail especially, you want to play in both of those worlds. Like you want to be in the top of the algorithmic feed, but you also want to be in that like social proof validation part of those worlds where people are actually talking about your brand. And then that then creates authority that gets fed into those large language models that serve up your brand.
That's very interesting. Another way that I use AI a lot is with my wearable technologies.
There you go. All right.
Like I use them to sleep. I use it to run, to play sports, to track my data, to make more informed decisions. Although I don't shop with any of that, there are things popping that might interact with my shopping experience. What are some of the stuff
the new devices
that you have, the new
things.
devices that you have?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely still early days. I will say right now, these are the Meta Ray-Ban displays. These are very, very new. But in terms of the original Meta Ray-Bans, those are 2 million have been sold. They're in production run. You look fantastic. Look, you can pull off the chunky look. I can't pull off the chunky look. It needs to be chunky to fit all that compute. But I would say pretty light, right?
It's very
for
light,
all the compute that's in there. One of the best products. I mean, granted, who would have thought that Meta would have the number one AI wearable right now in the Meta Ray-Bans? But like you have to give them their due. It's a fantastic product. And I think now if we're at 2 million of these products in the market, again, that it pales in comparison to the 100 million AirPods that are walking around the world right now. But these are a step change in that as great as AirPods are, as contextually as they could be, Apple Siri and Apple Intelligence has never really caught up. And also it's in your ear, so it doesn't really have that form function of like a camera up front that can essentially see things. And that's where Meta can essentially win, that I can look at these different devices and say, hey, Meta, tell me more about this product, tell me more about this look, and it can start to give me that information. It's built on Llama 4, which is their large language model. So it is very early days, and Facebook is being very restrictive in terms of what brands they're essentially surfacing. So if I'm looking at two products and say, hey, Meta, which one should I buy? They're very much going to say, I can't give that information just yet. You can probably bet your bottom dollar, that ad that comes up spatially in the Meta Ray-Ban displays will happen one day. But this is exciting because it starts to create a contextual world. And this is so important for retail because I think as the barriers break down between what is physical, what is digital, like having context in store will be so powerful. Our mind goes right to the point of like you're literally window shopping, like put this in my cart, put this in my cart. I can walk out of there after buying 20 things and not actually pick anything up. We're not there yet, but just the ability to find me a better price or find me something that's a different color. Like all those types of things are really, really powerful to have a contextual layer of AI in a store in the future.
How far are we from actually getting there?
It's happening now. I mean, the fact that right now I can go in any retail store and ask these questions to Meta AI, I'd say it's 75% there in terms of providing a ton of value. It's got to get better. But in terms of like mass adoption, we're probably a few years away of that. But like with AirPods, like with technology, we as humans adapt so quickly. So I like to use the Amazon 2-day shipping. Like when that first came out over a decade ago, it was like amazing, like anything in 2 days. And then it was 1 day, and then it was same day. And then it's like my Uber Eats can get me my, alcohol or food within 10 minutes, right? And then we kind of like 2 days, it's going to take 2 days to get here. So I think once you find a piece of technology or an innovation that just provides such immense value for you, it's really hard to then go back to what you had before. So I think once people start to realize, and it's not just spatial computing, it's agentic browsing. Once they have that light bulb moment where they say, well, that was really easy and that was a great user experience, I want to do that again. Then all of a sudden, like the famous Mark Twain quote, which was about bankruptcy, but we can say it here, is like, how did I get bankrupt? It was gradual, then sudden. I find the same thing with these types of technology. That AirPods 10 or so years ago of like, I'm gonna stick these white things in my ear and look like a fool to everyone. And now it's like, it's a fashion accessory. So I think that is where I'm hopeful for in retail, that we're at 2 million now with Meta Ray-Bans. We obviously know OpenAI with Johnny Ive is gonna come out with an AI wearable. Google's closely behind. Apple's gonna come out with one next year. So this spatial computing revolution will happen soon. It will take time for consumers to actually start using it. But once they do, if it provides value, which it is set up to do, I think you're going to start to see it take off more. And then retailers really need to be prepared of what information are they serving or experiences are they serving when their product is in the crosshairs of one of these contextual AI devices.
I remember when this guy came, like we talked about it in one episode. It was a lot like everybody was speculating on how we were going to shop with it.
Yeah.
It didn't seem that it got very far. But it gave us ideas, I guess, that evolved into the new devices, right?
100% right. I think a lot of these devices like this will, I mean, it kind of died a fast death.
For the ones that are listening to us, we are pointing at the Apple Vision Pro.
Yeah, we're looking at the Apple Vision Pro now. Again, a device that, all in when you have to buy, it's around $5,000 because you have to buy the security or the insurance for it, because even the device, if you pick it up like this, the whole thing drops and you could just knock a computer down. But there are certain mechanics in this that are fascinating. We're prototyping and building some retail 3D models within that experience. And it's amazing to see a Brooks running sneaker kind of unpackaged. You have a 2D site where, we've lived for 20 years in the internet being 2D. There's an X and a Y axis. This adds Z space. So we built this prototype where, you're on a 2D webpage and all of a sudden the sneaker pops off the page, the 3D model unboxes, and now you can manipulate it. You can see the different lighting. You can see how the shoelaces untie. It's a really immersive experience. The problem then becomes is there's only dozens of us that actually have this device. Apple would say a few 100,000, but this goes back to like, how do you promote a 4K television when you see an ad for a 4K television on like an old school 1980 black and white one? It's hard to know it until you put this on and see what that future looks like. And unfortunately, the major difference between these two is no one wants to put this type of Cybertruck on your face. You look ridiculous. All wearables are a form of fashion, function, and feasibility. And
talking about looking ridiculous.
Yeah, Paul is putting on the spectacles right now.
Yeah, what is this that I'm
So this is
right
Snap's developer spectacles. This is the 5th generation. This is more true augmented reality. So even with the Meta Ray-Ban displays, that is really a heads-up display. So wherever you move, your head moves, your display's going with you. These, which are off right now, because I don't want to give your, tickle your brain in the wrong way when you actually see the AR. This actually will overlay digital artifacts and things in your real world. So in order to do that, that is much more compute. That is why these things are just obnoxiously large. Similarly with the Vision Pro, this has a great pass-through, which can put digital things in your physical world. So right now the form function is way too big. They're not fashionable. And frankly, that's why I feel like they really haven't taken off. Meta Ray-Bans, you're talking about EssilorLuxottica, you've got a beautiful design. You've got a price that's,
You can put it on.
Here we go. These are the chunky ones. But even in the original Meta Ray-Bans, you're under $300. You have a ton of value. You have good form function, and it's really useful. And the powerful thing with these types of devices, I'm getting a phone call. We're just going to turn that off, which is amazing. I can do that. The amazing piece with these is, again, you buy this product and for the next 3 years, you're getting over-the-air updates. So again, you don't have to buy the new generation every time. You can spend that $250, which is not nothing, but a lot less than $5,000. And then that product keeps getting new every time real-time translation comes out, every time commerce integrations come out. That I think is an amazing piece.
Different than the Apple Vision Pro and what is the name of this?
Spectacles. The spectacles.
And the spectacle from Snapchat.
From Snapchat.
It's like it's a super cool thing to have. Like it's something. It starts a conversation.
It starts, it could also end a conversation because someone's actually calling you right now. Yeah, I think that's going to be the big washout here. So Paula just put these on. The amazing piece here and why this technology is so powerful is that even if I put these on, I have a very, and she could see it too, a very like beautiful visual display in my right eye. It shows me menus. I can ask Meta anything. I can take photos to see the photo I'm taking.
Take a photo of us.
All right, so I can either do it with the physical button right here. Looking great. I can actually do it and then zoom in and take the photo. Again, everything's being controlled by this electromyography EMG wristband that you wear. So the amazing thing, again, here, can take photos, can do all these things, but here's where it gets weird, right? Because the second I stop looking at you and do this, and now I'm looking at the screen, you can kind of see I've disconnected as a human.
Yeah.
So that's the one piece that essentially has to be solved that hasn't been solved yet. But, we're at a time when, as Americans, I believe we spend 5 hours and 4 minutes a day on our smartphones. It's 8 hours and 2 minutes a day in China. So we very much would like to be in a heads up world where we can stop being so addicted to our smartphones. Spatial computing, in a way, can alleviate some of the usage of that phone. Americans unlock their phones 144 times a day. If you can decrease that to 120, 110, I think that's a world people would like to live in. We just don't want to then replace it with watching Instagram reels in my right eye while I'm having a conversation with you. So there's definitely that balance that we need to figure out. But there is something amazing about getting served information in a way that I can see, but still kind of be engaged in a conversation. But we'll see. We'll see what ends up.
Yeah, but I can see myself very soon shopping with it. Like I can see myself going to a store and like, which coffee is better, this brand or this brand? And just understanding more about helping me to make a decision at the point of purchase.
It's a great point. And I'll actually give you an adjacent one that I think is such a fascinating use case for retail. This was in our innovation brief last week. Amazon's Help Me Decide button. And it was underreported, but I think for retailers, you have to pay attention to this. Amazon is another bellwether for us of they have like a 20-year head start on just the multitude of data, not only from consumers, but from brands, from supply chains. And this Help Me Decide basically eliminates the consideration phase for marketers. If you're torn essentially between two products, Amazon now has this Help Me Decide where it will just make the decision for you based on your browser history, based on the reviews, based on all the data points it has. It even gives you a budget pick. So pick me something that's a little cheaper, upgrade me, pick me something that's a little more expensive, or just pick me the best between these two products. If I'm a marketer, that gives me heart palpitations to be like, normally I could insert an ad at that consideration phase. I can try to influence the purchase decision. What happens in a world where the algorithm and its data completely decides which direction the human will go? And if you're the human, you'd say, no, I want to pick. I would argue humans don't want the anxiety of choice all the time. And if we've done our research and I'm really torn between two products, having a data-backed solution to say I looked at 10,000 data points and this is the best product for you, I'd prefer that. I guess I'd ask you, would you prefer something like that, or you would want to have control of that end device, of that end selection?
I don't know. I think I like to have the control, but I don't know.
You don't know. Yeah,
it all depends on
the
what
product
it is.
too.
Yeah,
it depends on the product. Yeah. That's where I think it's all about context. If it was, swimwear or a great outfit you were going to buy, you'd probably say I don't want Amazon's algorithm to tell me the fashion I'm going to wear. But if you can't choose between these two air fryers and all you really want are those fries later, you're they're going to be just as delicious. Give me the budget pick. So again, that for a retailer, you have to think about where on the value chain you exist. And if you're one of those ones that can speak agentically to these systems to say choose me, I'm the better product, then you'd work harder to make sure that agent knows to pick you versus your fashion brand. You still want to cater to the human. I'd say that's the biggest thing of how our internet's going to evolve for marketers and retailers. Do you need to cater to the human more who's surfing the web? Do you need to cater to the agent more that's surfing the web? Or do you need to cater to both?
Yeah, and I think it all depends on what type of product you serve.
Exactly.
I think if it's a commodity product, I don't know, toilet paper.
I
mean,
yeah.
I don't want to make a decision on toilet paper. And I think it's pretty, I don't
want
even know which brand
pick.
I like.
Yeah.
It's just whatever is in the market. So yeah, I think, it's going to be an interesting time. It's already an interesting time.
Fascinating time. Yeah, I think the more these little things take over, again, that is I'd say surreptitious feature that pops up on Amazon. That again, it's not shouting from the rooftops, here's our new big feature update, an OpenAI would, where here's Sora 2, everyone come use it. We have 1 million person wait list. It's Amazon just subtly enhancing their existing tools backed by data. And then it's just really useful for that person to use. So I think that's where we'll see the greatest ground be made with AI, or what are the existing enhancements backed by data with the tech giants we use every single day. And that's where I think it really starts to take off, as opposed to the net new platforms or tools.
Yeah, and like all these new tools that are, well, they got my heart already. They're growing on me.
Yeah.
What do you think is the future? I mean, let's say you're futuristic. Let's imagine what is a good customer experience in the future. How will it look like?
Well, the first thing to note is that like the future is just coming fast. So it's hard to even project out what we thought was, 5 to 10 year windows, or really like 1 to 2 year windows, or we're talking months. I think there's always this North Star future of personalization that doesn't invade privacy, that it can feel what I'd call like passive personalization, where it feels like it was tailored to me, but not in a way that's really creepy. I think we all probably have had that feeling before, where like you say something with friends or with your partner, and then all of a sudden you go on Instagram and there's an ad for that thing, and you like look around and you look in you're like, is there someone, like, am I bugged? And the reality is, like, there is some data and math behind that. Of you might have searched once and there's a reason that retargeting ad came up. But if you don't cross that bridge, and it's more of, okay, this felt like it was made for me, like kind of that, I'll date myself, but like that CD mixtape that your partner made for you 20 years ago, or like that Spotify list that just like feels so good and it feels like it was made just for me. I think that is definitely a North Star for marketers. What I do think for humans, what the future state is like a complete breakdown of physical versus digital. Meaning, again, context is everything. I might walk into, say, a Target, and because I have my Jeep and I have a bunch of stuff I need immediately, I want to load up my cart and I want to put it in my actual car. But that same day, maybe I need to go pick up my 5 and 3-year-old and carpool, and I can't physically put anything in my car, but I still need to buy these 20 products. As the consumer, I then would want to use either my spatial computing device, my watch, my phone to buy everything. It's just going to be at my home when I get there. So I think a lot of the greatest innovations in that future state, again, is going to be what becomes invisible in the background. And for the consumer, it's whatever they want when they want it. I think that was been what the internet was for us. Everything's on demand. So that's, I think, the future state. In retail is going to be definitely more experiential. Like it should feel like the Target run, or it's like, here in New York City, right? Like that experience around the holidays where it's like everything's a show. I think that's the future state. You're more immersive in retail, whether they buy it in store or buy it in store to be shipped at home, and or look at it, window shop, and buy it online from a third party. That's very much going to be reality. But I don't see in the next 3 to 5 years the future where, we're all in heads-up displays, it's all AR, we're all like trying on different things within like our worldview. I don't think that's here yet. That'll take more time. But definitely the breakdown of what constitutes physical versus digital, marketers have to get used to, because we all like to still think in those silos. And for the consumer, especially in the future state, they will not think of those silos.
Yeah, it's already
very
breaking blurred.
Down.
Yeah.
It's already blurring down.
But I think it's so hard, right? Like we see innovation, new things coming up every second. Like something new. Like it's very hard for me to keep up. Like I have work, I have things to do. I either stay reading the whole time or I don't know what is happening, which that's why I like your LinkedIn so much, because you help me stay up to date.
The 60-second brief, yeah.
But how a brand and a retailer, they are as busy as me, maybe more, how they can prioritize what is actually noise or what is actually good and what is noise?
It's frankly really hard. Like you make such a good point. There is just a deluge of news and updates and shiny objects, and we speak with a lot of C-level executives, and you'll have a CMO that's just like, I heard X, I read this in the New York Times. What do we do? And it feels like, especially today with AI, there's crawl, walk, and run, right? Like you want to start to get into these new spaces, these new innovations. We always preach that with brands. Let's crawl, let's walk, let's run, let's learn that entire way. It feels like now every CMO says like, it's run. We have to run now. We have to sprint now. And it's really hard to do that if you don't even understand the technologies or how you actually have to get there. So the world we're in today, especially with marketers, it's taking a deep breath. It's having good thought leadership. And again, whether that's having it internally, your own focus groups, whether it's hiring an R&D firm, a consultancy, but you need to have a filter of the news that's out there to what you actually pay attention to. And I mean, we've made our business saying no more than saying yes. So when it's like Apple Vision Pro, Metaverse, what should we do? 99% of the time, we told our clients, don't do any, like literally don't do it. Like it's a bad, like if you really want to give us your money to do an execution, like we'll do it, but we don't want to do it. Like it's not good for your brand. This isn't going to have the staying power. This is an ephemeral technology. Don't race towards it. So I think a lot of it is just like being able to say no. Now, the flip side of that is with AI, it is all about testing. That's why we call ourselves a research and development firm. You can't just talk the talk and be a futurist and say, all these things are going to happen and everyone's going to be wearing spatial computing. You need to be wearing these devices, the Vision Pro, the Meta Ray-Bans. You need to be developing for these devices, which we are, and just testing and see what features might actually work. Some of the retail stuff we did in the Vision Pro, these 3D models, it was stunning. It was beautiful. When we put that Vision Pro on a CMO and said, here's your product, here's an unboxing, a digital unboxing that totally elevates your product. They absolutely loved it. They want to activate on it. And then we show the data of how many people are using this. You're like, it's a bunch of nerds like me. You're not going to hit your audience. Like your audience is on Instagram, your audience is on TikTok. So you also have to explain, while this is great, it doesn't have mass adoption. So this might not be the best exercise of capital to spend on something like this if that's not what a majority of people are doing. So it is definitely having a great thought leadership partner that can help you filter through all of this noise and then actually start to develop and test and see what essentially works. I'll close with, I think Walmart's done a great job with this throughout the years. They had incubator programs, Store 8, I think it was called. But they were doing shoppable media in 2017. They were doing all of these different, really like nascent new technologies. And every news report would say like, Walmart's not going to make any money off of this. What are they doing? And of course they weren't going to make money, but they were going to learn in case that trend caught up, like shoppable media, which is popping up everywhere now. They're going to be more apt to live in that world because they've tested and they've learned on it. So I think that's the major thing for brands. You have to start to test these technologies.
You have to have the nerds in your team too, who's going to be testing.
Exactly.
It gives me some flashbacks from the metaverse.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's why Meta
Is that where we met?
Meta.
Did we meet in the metaverse?
It was in the metaverse era. Yeah.
I was like a legless avatar. I might have seen you in Horizon Worlds or something.
Yeah. So I remember when we thought that was the future.
We did. That was a collective delusion for a while.
It was a collective delusion. And nowadays, look at us going to stores again to do everything that we used to do 30 years ago, but more digitized.
Yeah. I think that always goes back. That's why one of our 4 pillars at M7 is behavioral and cultural, just human behaviors and cultural shifts. And that's because we are human, and we will always revert back to like what we as humans want: social, being around other people, like tangible, taste, touching, feeling things. I think at the time coming out of COVID, the metaverse made perfect sense. We had the technology to catch up with that, to say we can create these unbelievable worlds, we can do all these different things. But then like actually living in that world was like a very dystopian, terrible feeling. Like if you spend any time in Horizon Worlds, it was like, I need to get out of here as fast as I possibly can. So it was just essentially a mismatch. And then the market at that time thought that like this was going to be the next thing coming out of COVID. And then naturally, like humans, we came right back to where we were. But again, I would argue like the metaverse is still here and still around us. I can make the argument that if you looked at the metaverse type worlds like Decentraland and Horizon Worlds, like today, they're in the hundreds of thousands of monthly active users. If I went to Minecraft, Roblox, and Fortnite, there's over 800 million monthly active gamers or players in those worlds. And if you ask a lot of gamers who we interview and do studies with, like they don't call themselves gamers. Like, I'm gonna go game, right? Minecraft, Roblox, these are social media networks for them. So my argument is like the metaverse is here. It's just not what we or Mark Zuckerberg envisioned it to be. But yes, we will always be humans. And that's why studying the anthropological piece of all of this, of how we will wear these devices, what works versus what horribly fails, is all a study in what we as humans are comfortable with.
And what is for sure something that people should totally be investing in? Because that's an innovation that you have to have.
I mean, I'm gonna do a cheating answer, like a cop-out answer for marketers, but I do think investing in your brand, like investing in the highest part of the funnel of like building brand equity. We've kind of been in this world where it's performance marketing and it's like bottom of the funnel, and Meta and TikTok all push us towards that. I mean, even Meta today says like, forget all your advertisements, forget all that, just like hook up your bank account to Meta and we'll do all the ads for you. We can show you the data that's going to push the most sales. But the reality is what we're seeing on the forefront of AI first search, these AI brand monitoring firms, is that like authority and brand equity matters. Like your brand actually really matters. So you need to build that authority, not just in your owned and operated sites, not just through paid media, but what people are saying on Reddit, what's happening on Substacks, what's happening in Wikipedia. Those are all authoritative sources now for these large language models. The idea that I don't need to care about my brand anymore, I just need to spend as much money and invest in getting people to buy, that's going to look really different in a zero-click world where people, again, will want to probably pick something they trust, not just the bottom of the barrel, whatever, the AI picks for me. So I think that's like, if you're going to invest in anything, invest in the brand. And then the second piece is invest in innovations, try things out, because what I've seen, so many brands are just on their back foot. And the wildest thing about how to succeed in, let's say, an AI first search world, it's not what you can do right now. It's what you've done for the last 20 years. What's your data hygiene? What's all the elements? Have you ever had a Reddit strategy? How are you showing up? So it's really interesting because everyone wants a solution right now. And most of the time, like what we do at M7 is like flip a mirror to say like, what are your actual problems? What is your data hygiene? We like to think of ourselves as a convex mirror that we show the brand who they are, but we can also see around the corner for them to say, here also is the tsunami of technologies coming and here's how you can prepare for them. But that's the real piece. It's invest in brand, invest in testing and learning new things. And again, the most dangerous thing any company could ever say is, this is the way we've always done it, so we're going to continue to do it this way.
Yeah, absolutely. The world is completely different.
So different.
Matt, thank you so much for always blowing my mind. It's always great to hear you speak. So happy that we can share your thoughts with our audience today. Thank you for participating.
Thank you so much for having me, Paul. It was great.